Hey, hey,
This is George.
this is Frazier.
This is Real Talk with George and Frazier. What's going on, Frazier? How you doing?
Not much, man. Relaxing, chilling. How
Relax.
you doing?
I'm doing good, actually. My baby brother's getting married this weekend, so we're gonna be going to that. So I had to get the little freshness, the change up from last week, which is good.
I see.
You
You
know,
ready to get touched up, huh?
yeah, man,
That touched on
absolutely.
and do your thing.
Everything. Proud of him. Proud of him. He's the last one out of all my siblings, so it should be a good time this weekend. But enough with me.
Oh
Our
man.
show is going to be really exciting today because we have a journalist on, Mr. Marcus Benjamin, who really has his finger on the pulse of athletes, what's happening in the neighborhood, who's the up and coming. So I really can't wait to speak to him, because I like athletes, I like journalists, especially hungry journalists, people that go ahead and put the extra effort in when nobody's watching, you know, to build their foundation and build their base, and that makes them better in the long run because they're not doing it for money. They're not doing it for show right now. They're doing it specifically for the love. So I'm definitely excited to speak to Marcus when he comes on. Praise, you okay? Your screen froze a little bit, or it might be me.
Hey, hey.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah.
You
You know what
having
happened right
issues? You having issues I've been having. I
there?
had
Yeah,
to
you saw
go.
that, right?
Yeah.
On fault before. I had to do it. We did last week, so I said I'm do it this week for you, so you don't feel so bad about last week.
No problem. No problem at all. You know what I actually did was instead of using Wi-Fi now, I'm plugged right into the DSL to make sure that we don't have any glitches on my end. So
Oh,
definitely works.
nice.
Definitely works. So
That's,
we're just waiting for Marcus to come on right now. He should be on shortly. Um, like I said, I'm really excited to speak to real hungry young journalists who have the opportunity really to hone their craft, you know, and they go out and get the stories really that everybody's not looking for, that everybody's not paying attention to, you
exactly.
know, and that's what makes them different because they're putting the work in now when nobody's watching. It's not about money. It's like I said before, it's not about fame. It's about passion and drive and something that you really like to do. And as they go ahead and continue those processes, um,
Yep.
they'll actually get picked up by local and regional and major networks because of the work that they've done and all the hard work that they've put in. So I'm really excited to speak to Marcus when he comes on. Other than that, Fred, what else is going on?
Oh man, sports, man. You just see Lakers, man. I told you they gonna win. I told you he gonna win that one game. I didn't vouch for the other game, but I vouched for that one game. I got one game, man. Good.
Well, I really wanted him to go to seven. And the reason why I wanted him to go to seven is because I wanted to watch basketball. I don't like watching sports where it's a one sided blowout because it feels like it's wasting my time. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
I always like things that are competitive. You know, my son was telling me after the Lakers game, believe it or not, they were actually complaining that this was LeBron's easiest championship. And I was like, you can't win when you're fighting hard and you're scuffling, you're bloodied up, and you can't
Exactly.
win when you are not as damaged and bloodied up, and you just can't win for not. I mean, you think
Exactly.
about it. If
Exactly.
LeBron James didn't step up in those couple of games where he took control of the game to get them 5, 10 points ahead, 20 points ahead, and get that momentum, they would have lost. They
Exactly.
would have lost those games.
Hey.
So to sit
What
here and
do
criticize, yeah, to sit here and criticize him now, it's just like you guys are just so ungrateful fans. If I was
exactly.
LeBron James, I'd just block all you guys.
I'll think the exact same thing. I'm like, what are y'all complaining about? Like, first of all, the Heat was not a pushover. If they play any other team, I believe Heat probably would be a champion right now. I'll be no jokes aside, they'd probably be a champion right now. They play hard for that game. Come on, they put Anthony Davis in check, Danny Green in check. They put most of their scores in check with George Time. And if it wasn't for LeBron, they wouldn't even be even ahead by 10 points or 20 points here or that fourth quarter spurt that he had in a couple of last games, they'd have been sitting home looking like, what happened here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I have to agree with just some ungrateful people who think this was easy championship. There's no championship easy. I'm sorry. There's no championship that's easy. I mean, unless you in on the field and playing, you can't say it's easy. You can't say that. You just can't. I'm sorry.
Well, it's just fans. You know, it's just fans having and needing something to pick at, you know. And like I said, take it with a grain of salt. I wish it would have gone to 7. I would have liked to see more of what Miami could do. But it didn't, you know, and we got 6 games out of it. And,
6 games is better than we thought, because most people were predicting a sweep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about it. They gave him a run, and I tell people, I believe they probably wanted banged up. It probably went to 7. If Dragon one banged up, Bang one banged up, Jimmy one bruised up a little bit. You know, I mean, some other players step up when they should step up, not every other game. Then it probably would have been serious. It probably was 7 games.
You know what? When I saw Game 6 and I saw Jimmy Butler, honestly, Jimmy Butler looked tired. He didn't have that snap. He didn't have that quickness. He didn't have anything. He looked like he was literally running on fumes. He couldn't get to his marks. His defense was off, everything. And that's what happens when you have a guy that carries the team that's young like that, that, you know, expensed all his energy and didn't understand that LA had a bench that they could go to when a Dwight Howard. They had a bench that they could go to with a lot of other people to fill in those gaps and those bursts of energy that they needed. And Miami just didn't have that, whether it was staff, whether it was players, whether it was energy the Miami Heat were bringing to the table and bringing to the floor. They just didn't have that energy. And like I said, you know, when LeBron James stepped into the game and started taking over some of those games, even the energy for the Lakers, the way that they played as a unit, you see what I mean? Stepped up. So.
Exactly. But I mean, I think some of the bench Heat players, they stepped, like I said, stepped up in certain key points, but it wasn't enough. You know, you got Jimmy Butler putting all out, Bang putting all out, Dragon when he's in the game putting out, Hero putting all out. So I mean, they had a lot of young stars that came up, but it all boiled down to experience.
Right.
I think basically you look at the Bond team, which had a lot more experience. You had a couple players who won championship already on that team, so they know what it takes to get over that hump. On the other side, the Heat, they had a few players, but they don't have no player that won championships.
Yeah, they did. Iguodala won with
Iguodala, but then think about Iguodala, he come off the bench though. He's not starting. He come off the bench, so it's a lot different from a starter with champion that starter versus a champion that's coming off the bench starter. You know, so he had influence, but I mean, not as much as he should have because they put him in. I mean, you can't. You got a championship player who used to be in these type of games riding the bench. Come on now.
Well, you know, his play performance too, I really wasn't impressed with a lot of it. You know, I thought he should have been a little bit more savvy the way that he was playing some of the players.
Yeah.
But then again, you don't know what Miami's playbook is. You know.
That's true. But you know, he did the same thing with San Antonio. I mean, he did so somebody the game 6s, he just don't have a good game 6 with because he did the same thing with San Antonio. He had a guy on the bench that could stick dunking. He kept putting Haslam on him. Haslam was shorter. Haslam could stick him to put the ball down, yeah. But once they figured that out, that was a wrap.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
could have been out coached. Definitely could have been out coached.
Yeah, I think he was out coached. Game 6, he was out coached. In the San Antonio series, and this series here, he was outplayed. They was outplayed. The only thing they had the energy they had in Game 5 that they had in Game 6. It wasn't the same energy. Like they wanted it, but they didn't want it.
Right.
Game 5, they wanted it. They were content not to lose.
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's a big. You say energy wasn't there. It wasn't there to me.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm glad that it's over. I'm glad that they got to play basketball. You know, I'm glad for guys that finally got a ring like AD and guys like Dwight Howard. You know, these guys are on the downside of their career. Well, not AD. Dwight Howard's on the downside of his career. And you don't even know if he's coming back because this was a 1-year contract just, you know, on the cusp from him to play basketball. So if he leaves with a ring, you know, after everything he's done in the league, I think he deserves it. You know,
Yeah.
Miami's going to be back. Don't get me wrong, because
Oh
Miami
yeah.
needs actually two pieces. Miami needs two pieces. They need a
Exactly.
solid two pieces to back up Butler, and they need a solid power forward. Solid. Okay.
Exactly.
And once
I
they
was thinking
have
a
those
big
two
center
pieces,
too. I would say get a big man in the paint too, because if you think about it, if you move Payne on the power forward, that will eliminate the power forward need, and you
right,
put that big center there, and guess what? Now you got that same concept as the Lakers got. You got Davis and you got what's going on the side, and you got
right,
Howard, you got Davis. You had the same combination.
right.
You put in there, you same chemistry. Because that's
Sure.
what you think about it. If you
Yeah.
Davis was a big influence because they had no power forward that can stick him really. And if there was sticking him, he can't stick him too long because he get in foul trouble.
Right.
Keep back and forth, keep switching back and forth. Which games you notice, game 6, they didn't do that as much. So
Right.
he kind of had his way a little bit more. And plus, too, you got they about talking about Danny Green didn't do much or he didn't shoot much, but his defense was exquisite.
Right.
His defense was on point. He shut his man down, literally shut his man down. His man could not do nothing. He did
Right.
little, but his man shut him down. He shut him down too. I like the old school saying, if I can't score, you can't score.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what else is going on in sports?
Oh no. It's like so much stuff going on now. Like you were talking about go to football, pay how I'll say, well, Tom Brady, man. I just see Tom Brady look so different in a Tampa Bay uniform. I'm seeing him in New England. I just can't get used to that. This is weird.
It's business. You know, Tom Brady was a shot in the arm that Tampa Bay needed. Are they going to bring a couple of the players that they need to support him where he wants to go? Because, you know, Tampa Bay really is trying to get back to the Super Bowl, too. You know, that's
Yeah,
the first piece. The second piece is how will New England adapt without Tom Brady being there? Because he's been such a pivotal role and a pivotal
exactly.
person at the presenter, at the position of quarterback. Um, you know, these are all things that they absolutely have to figure out, you know, but I wouldn't put it past them. Like some of these franchises kind of understand that.
Yeah, but I mean, they did put. I mean, we see in the first couple of weeks, Cam Newton did pretty well. I mean, he did actually pretty well. He actually looked like the old Cam Newton that we just see back in Carolina.
Right.
I mean, they made certain key points to fit the situation. The running back doing good. He's doing really good. He helping out. So they got a running game going. So then he hadn't more pressure on him like he had in Carolina, which they really had no running game in Carolina.
Right.
So and their defense was sometime. Not trying to say their defense was on, but their defense on is great.
Right.
Their defense is off. That secondary is suspect. And a lot of teams realize that, pick up on that, and they start hitting them deep, and they have no safety coverage, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I mean, on that aspect, I mean, I don't know. What you think about it? What you think about Tampa Bay? What you think about it?
Oh, look, Tampa Bay has a shot. You know, Tampa Bay has a real shot. You know, because the thing about it is the fact that you are going to the biggest position is quarterback. And I say that to say that if you have a good quarterback that can rally your players will play for you. You see what I mean? And so
Yeah,
Tom Brady coming into that particular position and just telling them, look, give me one, maybe 2 seasons, and we're going to get back to the promised land. A lot of those players will play for him because of that. You see what I mean? So, you know, look, Cam Newton walking into a situation that's already been set up for him. Let's see if he can execute. You know, that's not the first time that we've seen people do that and organizations do that. But here's the problem that everybody has to look at. That particular offense was set for Tom Brady, not Cam Newton. So
exactly.
Cam is going to have to be able to add to that because he's not Tom Brady. And some of Tom Brady's weaknesses, like scrambling. Tom Brady was a pocket quarterback. He was never a scrambler and runner. Never was. You know.
Exactly.
So can Cam add to that? We'll find out.
Oh, yeah, I think he can because we've seen like he already had like what 2 rushing touchdowns or 3 rushing touchdowns in 2 games he did play in. So I mean, on that aspect, give New England another edge that people have to worry about now. So
Right.
not only have to worry about the pocket quarterback, now you got to worry about the scrambling quarterback. Oh man, I mean, defense, you always get a defensive problem as it is. So imagine now if Cam Newton learned to read as much as Tom Brady did. Oh, he's dangerous.
Right.
Offense, he would be dangerous to be able to read and know when to run when you have to, not when you need to. Man, that could be dangerous over there, especially that offense he has set up over there. Fits for him, perfect. I think he's perfect over there.
All right, fans, we're still waiting for Marcus to get on. We're still going to continue the conversation. That's Frazier checking on him to see where he is.
Yeah, I'm checking him right now.
So, we'll keep it going. Let's move aside.
There he is.
Oh, there he is.
There he is. Popped in there. Boop.
Hey. How's it going, guys? My bad. I'm new to the live streaming, so it took me a little while to kind of get going here. But how y'all doing today?
All right. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you.
Welcome to Real Talk. Great to have you.
Glad to be on.
Marcus, tell us real quick, and tell the people listening, about you and what you do down there.
Well, I'm a sports journalist down here in South Florida. I write for footballhotbed.com, which is not only just a publication, but they look to really kind of promote and really put out some of the talent that's down here, not just only in South Florida, but also, in the state of Georgia, very popular as well. They're also making moves to South Carolina and also Virginia as well. So it's really just, just promoting the kids to really get them out there. In addition to that, we're also a publication where we bring you news about South Florida football in particular, and also for the Miami Hurricanes as well. We put together what's called a middle school All-American game, and the Miami Hurricanes are involved with that. So as a result of that relationship, we do cover the Miami Hurricanes football games, and I do cover recruiting for them. I'm also a contributor for Sports Illustrated as well. So just giving you updates on recruiting in South Florida and how that relates to the Miami Hurricanes.
Okay, that's great. Talk to me about this middle school. What'd you call it? Middle school championship?
It's a middle school All-American game.
Middle school All-American. Yeah. Talk to me about that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of the top kids on the middle school level, and this is nationwide. The last one of the best quarterbacks that we had was out of Detroit, Michigan. So we've had quarterbacks such as Spencer Rattler. That's actually the quarterback of the Oklahoma Sooners right now, as one of the quarterbacks who won the competition back in middle school. So, it's a great program that a lot of kids who need some notoriety can really get involved in. We're also going to do a Senior Bowl this year. Just a lot of course, it's a crazy year, and with COVID, a lot of kids are not getting the notoriety that they really need. And especially down here in South Florida, a lot of schools haven't even played yet.
Right.
And it's October. It's mid-October already. And a lot of kids who really need some pub in their senior year are not really getting that. So we are going to get some games starting this week, next week. Some schools are finally going to get involved. So that's good to see. But these type of events really help promote the kids that are not getting the pub that they deserve.
Exactly. Okay. So how do the kids that qualify for the game? Do you guys scout them out, or do the coaches see you notorize videos, or how do they get notoriety to be in this game?
Well, it's usually by invite. So you have to have what's called a huddle tape these days. Okay. Huddle is basically one of the most popular ways you can get tape. So if you create an account, you can get some film or game film. So a select group of guys do look at some game film from players and basically handpick these guys. A lot of the times, kids or parents can reach out to us either, within the many various ways that you can reach out to us, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and self-promote a player. So those are kind of the various ways that kids get into the game.
Really quick, you said a huddle tape. Is that a platform where somebody can sign into, or is that self-made with a cell phone and a camera, and you're cutting video and uploading it online?
No, you just create an account, and once you create an account, Huddle will basically create game film for you. Um, there's options to highlight certain plays or whatnot, but it's a service that Huddle basically produces for the kids. It's HUDLE.com. HUDL.com.
HUDL.com.
Okay.
Now, is there a membership fee, a monthly fee to it, a yearly fee?
I believe there is a fee involved. It's been a long time since ever paid a fee. Coaches can also, of course, log in and create a feed to look at different players or whatnot, college coaches. But there is a fee involved. I'm not sure exactly what it is.
All right.
Yeah.
Frazier.
So,
Frazier, go ahead.
Oh, so tell us how you got into it. Like, what inspired you to want to be a journalist, a sports journalist?
well, after a while, I realized that I could actually write. So, just knowing that I had that talent and really the love for football and sports, just overall, and not only that, I do love promoting kids as well, and really just kind of highlighting kids in the area and really getting them out there when they're not really getting their just due nationally. But I majored in communications and should have started a little bit earlier. I'm not gonna lie, but it's something I love doing. Really telling stories is really my passion, I guess you could say. Telling stories and really telling my perspective to the masses from my lens is something that I really enjoy.
Okay. I just want to build on that because in today's society, and in this culture, you have a lot of ways to get out, create your platform. Now with streaming, you can stream from your phone. But the truth of the matter is we don't see quality, that much quality. Like, for instance, now you can just press a button and you'll be live on Instagram. But the quality and the content that you're putting out is not there. And it's a breath of fresh air to see people in your genre with communication degrees that understand that. And like you said, are physically going out and looking for those athletes that we know that need their just due, but maybe don't know how to get there or how to start that. Like I said, and it's just hearing you say it. I've been there because I've done it. I've had a digital publishing magazine as well too, so I understood, the ability of getting fighters and getting people out there to be seen because the major magazines and publications won't touch them, But to see it in our communities and the passion that you have in our communities to have this stuff happen is really heartfelt, really heartfelt.
Yeah, I really feel like it's important just because South Florida, just like hence the name of the website, is a football hotbed. And it's important that these players really get the notoriety that they deserve, because there's just many players out there that don't end up making a roster or don't get a scholarship that they really deserve. So another thing I want to touch on, which something you said, George, is that everybody these days has a platform, and it's more important for journalists like myself to really be efficient, I guess you could say, because everybody has a voice. Everybody will criticize what you say. You have to be very accurate with your information, and you have to separate yourself from the common blogger or the common person on Twitter who thinks they kind of know everything. So that's really the kind of the challenge, to really separate your writing from a person who is just, giving their opinion on a blog or a Twitter post.
Yeah, I was just explaining this to Frazier too when we were talking, waiting for you to come on. Excuse me, and we were talking about the LA Lakers, how they were bagging on LeBron, saying that this was his easiest championship. He couldn't win for naught. He couldn't do anything right. If they would have lost, they would have said it was LeBron's fault. And so you're sitting here and saying the exact same thing. It's a matter of quality that you're putting out there, and like you said, honesty. And I still go back to, the players in our communities, not just in South Florida, because I know that that's where you are, but communities across this country that don't have quality journalists out there that are saying, hey, this is what you need. Because if you don't get that scholarship, okay, you're likely going to stay in your community and just grind down to nothing. You're never going to hit your potential. And they say when you have idle hands, what happens? A lot of times we all get in trouble, because we don't have those things, like you said, in place to get us to make sure that we get seen. We're not just a number. We are able to play on that level and show our players and our athletes on that level all the time. And that's a huge slide from what mainstream media will show our athletes and our kids, in our communities. They always show us as the negative, but they never show us as the positive. So your platform now comes and goes, no, this kid is in the library. This kid is a straight A student. This kid does this. Don't group him with B-roll film of something that's happening in this community, you see what I mean, or outside this community, or a black community across the country. You see what I mean? This kid, you know what I mean? And to be able to have that, understand that power, because that's exactly what it is. Because the way that you put it out there is clean. They can't cut that. They can't manufacture that, and they definitely can't manipulate that.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of what the best part about my job is really finding out really unique stories about these kids, because obviously a lot of them come from tough situations or tough backgrounds, or so to speak, and just to find out about different things that they're doing within the community, or finding out that a kid has like a 1300 SAT score. A lot of these kids are really smart, and people don't know that. So those are the type of things that are really enlightening when I am speaking to a kid, or even their parents, or just reading other stories. Because we do have to kind of dig and really see what separates these kids from others. Because a lot of these kids are fast. A lot of these kids can catch a football, but are these kids really, building from their community, or building their community up, basically? So a lot of these kids deserve that notoriety, and it's really fun for me to find out these things about these kids and telling their stories.
Just to add on to that before you come in, Frazier, the reason why I'm passionate about that too is because, their counterparts have the tools in place, and they'll get interviews faster because of the communities that they live in. Not our communities, the communities that they live in. Their stories will get picked up faster and retweeted and pushed out and going viral faster because of the communities that they come from, like you said. So it's amazing, Marcus, to sit here and find kids that have a 1300 SAT score. That's the kind of story that we all should be screaming from high heaven, but you'll never hear it, okay, because of what the narrative is locally, nationally, and regionally in this country when it comes to kids in our community. And it's a struggle. It's a fight when you walk out the door. You know what I mean? And it's a fight to get back in the house. throughout the entire process. It's not easy being a kid these days, you know. So to be able to sit here and have a platform, a legitimate platform that says, "Hey, we got love for you. We want to make sure that you succeed and do everything that you're supposed to do." Why? So you now can come back to this community and say, "I'm one of these kids from these communities that made it." You know, it's a real, it's a real challenge across the board for everything. But to know that it's there is also a breath of fresh air. Go ahead, Frazier.
Exactly. Now, let's touch on what you guys said. It's true that some kids don't get notoriety because I'm talking from a coach point of view and also a trainer point of view. And I've seen kids with a lot of potential, a lot of skills, but they don't get notoriety like kids would be in Texas or other states, football states. And the thing is, South Florida, they consider a football state, but not considered like Texas are. They have kids in Texas elementary already got scholarships to college already. What do you even high school?
Yeah, right.
You might get a full ride scholarship and you even touch high school ball yet. And it's kind of sad because Florida had the same criteria as kids, but they don't get the same notoriety as the kids in Texas do. They don't even get ranked nationally that the kids in Texas them do. And we do the same thing. We love football. We work football, eat sweat, and eat football. You know, that's why I said it's good to have somebody like Benjamin here who highlights them kids, who give us a voice to say, look, I am good. I do my community, and I am here to do the best I can, you know? And what I have for you is, do you think that Florida recruiting has went down a little bit over the last few years versus the early years when Florida was getting a hot spot, everybody coming to Florida, everything, running back, wide receivers? I mean, do you think it's a difference now? Now and then?
I think Florida still is producing top level talent. It's always Texas, Florida, and California, who are really kind of the top three, and then Georgia, Louisiana will probably come up after those three. I think Texas is just one of those states who just cares more about football. It's like we have so much talent in Florida and in South Florida especially, but look at the facilities that we have. I mean, it doesn't really compare to the facilities at Texas or even Georgia. I've seen facilities in Georgia that could rival some colleges here in Florida, and Texas as well. They just care more about football than Florida does, and there's also a discrepancy in pay with the coaches. I mean, that's something you could probably about, Frazier. I mean,
exactly.
The coaches and the teachers here in Florida are not paid as much as they should. Georgia is another state that cares about football a lot more, and sometimes coaches will flock to Georgia just because it's just a better opportunity. There's better facilities and there's better pay, and money talks and coaches walk. And that's basically what happens, unfortunately, for a state of Florida, who should be considered, the football hotbed of the country, but they just don't have resources.
Let me ask you real quick, Mark. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, but go ahead.
You can finish your thought. Is that what you're saying right now? Is that local? Is that state? Or is that city? Okay, because you're right. Texas is a football state, just like I'm in New Jersey. In New Jersey, where I am right now, in Jackson, this is a wrestling county. They start at Pee Wee wrestling. That's where they start. Okay, big thing here is wrestling and baseball. You see what I mean? Yeah. But is that local? Is that city? Or is that state when it comes to particular Florida? Because if you're talking about salaries, coaches should be paid. You're talking about community centers. There are grants and funding available for these communities to be able to put up these community centers. If football is what it is, they can put up a state-of-art facility because there's state grants, there's cities grants, and there's federal grants to build those for those people in those communities. Where is the lack of failure coming in? First of all, to be able to get the dollars that those communities deserve to build those facilities. And secondly, being able to get the funds that those teachers and coaches deserve to be able to keep them in those communities and teach and train.
I would say it's all levels. I mean, to be honest, state, county, and city level. I mean, if you look at the county of Miami-Dade, you have about, I would say, 4 teams that share one stadium. I mean, if you really look at it, that could go back to planning or city planning. Like the Miami is relatively a new city, and a lot of the high schools don't have an on-campus stadium. Traz Powell is a stadium that is shared by Miami Booker T, Northwestern, Central, Carroll City, Nolan. All these teams all play at that same stadium. Now, it is what's considered the mecca of high school football in Miami-Dade, just because of all of those great teams playing there. But that is just evidence in itself that we have just become used to as people who love the game. Should every school have their a stadium? Absolutely. That's something that's probably unheard of in states like Texas and Georgia. But to go back to your point, will you get funding for new stadiums? Or, I mean, a lot of it comes down to they don't even have the land to really kind of build it. A lot of these stadiums are on smaller acres than high schools that are in a Georgia or a Texas. But I don't really see any progress when it comes to that. Although the Miami Dolphins did donate to that stadium that I just referred to, Traz Powell. So I think it would have to be more donations like that to really build up the facilities to a level that can really be on par with these other states that are football crazy. Very similar to the Miami Hurricanes. The Miami Hurricanes notorious for having lack of facilities. Yeah, in addition to, you know, them being on probation for the past 20 or so years, it feels like their facilities were, you know, basically like D3 level, you can say. Before we now have the indoor practice facility, which was built, I want to say about 2 to 3 years ago. But a lot of donations from, you know, boosters. The head coach at the time, Mark Richt, donated his own money to that facility just to compete with getting recruits from South Florida to stay in South Florida. So it's going to take something like that, I would think, to really up the level of competition when it comes to the facilities and just really being on par with these other states.
Can I follow up with that? Because when you said land, I thought about real estate. You know, Frazier and I are in real estate. We've done things of that nature. But are you telling me that residential and commercial real estate is really choking the local economy when it comes to South Florida? So in other words, they rather have a mansion than they rather have a football stadium or something of that nature?
I mean, I would totally agree with that. I mean, yeah, I mean, football is, I mean, it's a great state. There are numerous amounts of great players that come from the state. I mean, it's just an endless list of great players that are even in the NFL right now. And I believe the state of Florida still leads the number of NFL players that are in the league. But if I would just be perfectly honest with myself, it's not. We're not a state that cares that much about football. We're not a state that cares that much about, you know, even going to games as much. Yeah, I mean, Miami in particular, I would say, is more of a winning town than a sports town. So when the team is winning, then everybody's on board. Everybody wants to roll with a winner. That's right. You know, the team down here with the best attendance is the Miami Heat, obviously because they're the best franchise down here. That's the franchise that is consistently competing for championships, every 2 years or so. So they have the best attendance. But the Hurricanes, they're not the best as far as attendance is concerned. Even when you go to a high school football game with, I don't know, it could have 4 or 5-star guys in it. Right. Unless it's a rivalry game, it's not going to be highly attended either. So it's just something that, it just kind of comes with the territory of being a sports fan in Miami. I born and raised in Miami, so I am a fan of not only the high school football players from down here, but all the college and pro teams. And I mean, there's a variety of different factors though that is. I mean, like I alluded to before, Miami is a relatively young city. I mean, no one's great grandfather was rooting for the Miami Heat. Let's just say that. So it's not as old as these older cities like New York or Boston, where somebody's grandfather's been cheering for the same team, and that's passed down upon generation. And we've got a lot of people who are not from Miami that are here. Not only people from out of town who are from New York or Boston or Philly, but a lot of people who are from Haiti or from Jamaica or from Colombia, Puerto Rico, Cuba. And football and basketball are not priority for them. Well, we do have a soccer team now, which I'm kind of representing their team with this jersey.
All right.
Okay.
But we'll see how that team, builds up. Of course, it's hard to tell right now with COVID going on to really see how much pub and notoriety they're really getting. But there's a variety of different factors that will tell you why that the stadiums are not full to capacity or whatnot. But I think in due time it'll become that sports city that we know it can be.
Well, let me ask you one follow-up question with that. Why aren't the local city councilmen getting involved, and why isn't there continual dialogue with them? Because actually the job of the councilman is to represent their community, you know what I mean, and make sure that their community has a voice in politics, safety, education, healthy water, everything that would make a community stable, even something like activity like sports. You rather have your kids playing basketball, soccer, football, baseball than being in the street causing troubles and problems for law enforcement, if that's what they chose to do. You see what I mean? So why aren't, in your opinion, why aren't your local city councilmen saying, hey, we have a shortage of land here and the ability to create community centers and things like that for these kids? Because these sports activities, like you said, if you check the NFL right now, they still have the highest percentage of players that play in the league. So if they're sending that many players to the league, how many players are they sending to D1 and D2 programs across the country? So it's not like these players are not sitting here and not, first of all, effective, talented, but secondly, contributing to the sports that they're in. So why isn't our local community supporting the next generation of players that are going to be doing what they're doing? In other words, why hasn't the case been made that this should be easy, like all day easy, not hard or pulling teeth?
I think the local officials are probably satisfied with where everything's at, because even with the deficiencies in athletic facilities, like you said, we still producing top level talent. So they're probably like, hey, well, we're still producing top level talent without putting a lot of effort into programs or facilities. So let's use that money for something else. Let's use that money to build another lane on I-95 or something like that. Exactly. Which I feel like they've been building on since the 80s. I feel like that's probably the same mentality that the Miami Hurricanes had, because even with their lack of facilities, they still had the number one team probably ever in college football in 2001 with the lack of facilities. So they're probably thinking to themselves, hey, well, we've done well for this long without really dedicating a lot of money to it. So, why start now? But the problem is that things are changing.
Yes. I was getting ready to say that. You're penalizing a program for basically that was a party school. Everybody wanted to go to Miami. If you weren't going to Miami, you weren't going to Miami to study. You was going to Miami to party. Okay? Everybody I know. Spring break, where you going? Fort Lauderdale or Miami? You see what I mean?
Exactly.
So to sit there, what do you think the local people are going to do? You see? So to sit there and say that was what it was, you can't penalize somebody forever. Everything changes, even training techniques, even equipment changes. So just to say that we are in a community that is literally still banging out hard and doing a lot of different things because we're lacing up our own bootstraps and we have a will not to fail or not to fall, doesn't mean that you shouldn't pay attention to that community, because I guarantee you for every one player that makes it, you have 10 players that don't, because the facilities and everything and the support system that they needed was not up to par. Now, if you go to places like Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, they'll make sure they have these tier systems in place to make sure those other 9 players that are good but could be great don't fall through the cracks.
True. Yeah. Let's touch back on that. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to Texas. I had a player who played with me who came from Texas, and he would tell me their structure is totally different here. They start from middle school. They start with 4 different teams from middle school. They grade them by talent, skill sets, and what potential they may have and what they don't have.
Right.
Ones who don't have, they build them up. So each grade had to go up. So they get kids start from middle school. Not even Pop Warner. Middle schools have teams that play, and they actually grade on to high school. Then they go to other high schools, because Texas have a lot of high schools. And they like Florida, they scribe on who can get the most scholarships. Yeah. They scribe on that. If you're in school and don't get a scholarship in Texas, they fire the coach. Athletic director, you fired. You got to go, because some of you doing wrong. Here in Florida, I've witnessed it. I've seen it. There's some programs that they don't even, after the director don't even care about it. If it ain't a program to win, like Benjamin said, if you're not a program that's winning, they don't care. I'm going to present an example of that. Southwest and Killian. That used to be the biggest rivalry down in Miami-Dade, in this area, anywhere. It was so big till they used to put it inside the Orange Bowl Stadium every year they played, because the fan base was so great. Mm-hmm. That's the only game every year that stacked the stadium with thousands and thousands of people. Even people came out of state to see that game play. I mean, now, should that be the same with all the states? Like he said, yeah. But then, like he's saying, they don't thrive on football they do in Florida. Coaches don't have enough equipment they need to actually produce quality players, for one. 2, the athletic directors don't care, so they don't give them the help they need or the funding they need to get the stuff they need to get. Mm-hmm. So you have some schools that have one sled for offensive linemen, and they have to borrow it out to another school. Mm-hmm. Or let's go to borrow this stuff for that. They borrow equipment. Who borrow equipment? I mean, you like lend out equipment. What kind of equipment is? Excuse me, sir. You my rival, but can you borrow my equipment next week and bring it back to me or the game? Come on, man. I mean, that makes no sense. But,
a lot of these programs and communities, Frazier, too, they have alumni and donors that come in and cut these checks to make sure that they succeed. And that's what I was referring to when I said they're counterparts. They're counterparts that don't look at us, that don't look like us. They make sure that they put things in their communities to make sure that they succeed. And that's why I was like, well, where are the city councilmen? Because every city councilman has a list of what grants are in place, even if it's just specific for equipment, for the community center. If you tell them, hey, look, I want to buy that building and I want to do this for this community center, and it's his district, he will say, okay, oh, great, okay, what's this look like? And you can also apply for this state and federal grant.
But they don't do that though.
Benjamin
probably vouch for that. They don't. How like some schools and some other states would like give the coaches an opportunity to get grants, apply for this, apply for that. If an alumni doesn't come back and donate, they don't get it in Miami-Dade. They will not get it. Like Miami Dolphins have to donate some amount of money to build a stadium where the county had the money to fix it.
Right.
And build it up. Because like you said, they don't see it. I would say up here would be wealth. Then down here, housing. Then down here would be other works, public work stuff. Then sports. Then activities. Then activity. But crime rate goes straight to number one. You had to supply the police department with tools and stuff when you can prevent that from happening by supplying the kids with activities to stay off the streets.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
You would never see a high school kid with potential on the street. No, wait, son, you play football? You don't play football? Come talk to you for a second. They will pull a kid lit off the street and give them scholarships to play ball.
Right.
They want to lead us. They may not be the leading school in putting kids in NFL, but they probably one of the leaders. Texas one leading school in putting kids in college.
Right.
They put kids in college at middle school. Matter of fact, you're a Pop Warner and they see potential in you. As a kid, I saw an article maybe 5 years ago. He's only 14 years old, big kid, oversized for age, got 2 scholarship offers. University of Texas and Texas A&M. Getting the kid 2 full-ride scholarships. He's not even in.
When he gets there, he got 2 scholarships waiting. When he gets there.
Exactly. So guess what?
Crazy.
I mean, it didn't happen between now and then. But he already got a full. He had to commit. The scariest thing is he had to commit before he get into middle school. When have you heard a kid in Florida do that? And this kid in Florida with the same potential. Probably even more potential this kid had.
Not more.
And not more. But don't get the opportunity. I mean, you need more highlights. I think we need more highlights. Like that was I love Benjamin for doing it because if it weren't for him, a lot of kids probably would not get the highlights they deserve or the spotlight.
Marcus, really quick, just to build on what Frazier is saying, not to cut you off, Frazier. What can the local community do? The booster clubs in New Jersey here with football, we have booster clubs, and then they help the team, they sport, raffle, this, that, and the third. Letter writing campaigns. What can the local booster club, if you guys have booster clubs, do to help build these communities up and help build these programs and keep them on the radar so it's not just up and down, because there's a direct correlation, as we've been saying, all of us now, between the crime rate, and sports and activities. If you keep these kids busy and keep them on a positive path, they'll stay off the streets. You see what I mean? If they have nothing to do, or you always kick their back in or feel like that they can't achieve certain levels, then they're defeated and they'll go another path. Do you guys, Marcus, are there booster clubs in place?
Like down here in South Florida, it's really more about these private schools. So you have private schools and public schools, which are, very, very different, but very similar at the same time. The private schools will have the alumni give back to the school, like schools like St. Thomas Aquinas, who's probably the best team in the entire country. And they play their first game tomorrow against the school that used to be University School, but due to COVID turned into True Prep Academy. But that's another story, another Benjamin report on another day. But the private schools do get that funding. I feel like they have the support. Like those facilities are great. St. Thomas Aquinas, I've been in. They've got like 2 separate locker room facilities. Where they're the best team in the state, arguably. They've won several championships. So, and they've been on ESPN probably more so than any other school in the entire state of Florida. So I feel like the private schools like St. Thomas Aquinas and Columbus is another, I would say, school with a strong alumni base. Those are the type of schools that are getting, the funding that they need. It's the public schools that are championship quality programs that are probably not getting the financial backing that they need. Like schools like, let's just say like a Deerfield Beach, which is a school who year after year produces great talent. There's players like Jerry Jeudy and Pierre Paul, Shoelace from back in the day. Just a bunch of players come out of Deerfield Beach. But if you look at their facilities, it's not on par to what that program should be. Like if you put that program in a Georgia or a Texas, it's going to have premier facilities based on the wins that school produces. So when it comes to funding, I feel like it's going to come from the private sector. These private donors or alumni or little Johnny's uncle who owns a law firm or a business, those are the people that are really going to donate back to the football team. But the alumni from other schools are just not so much. And I don't feel like community leaders are really going to step in to make it a priority.
Let me ask you a question. Then, more so, like, if you had an opportunity to make a program that would fish and everything, what would it be?
What do you mean?
Like, if you had an opportunity, say you had the funding, and you've been a sports writer, you know the stories, you know everything's going on in South Florida. Like, what program would you implement that you can benefit from, that they actually benefit the kids who actually need that in Florida?
Well, basically everything that we alluded to. I mean, the facilities. I think I would like say if I took over, I don't know, like Carroll City for example. Like I would basically if I could build a stadium on their campus and build a facility where it's top notch, and that is gonna keep those players in that community, because a lot of the times these kids will, the best players are the best players, and they transfer out to different teams all the time.
Exactly.
And they're going to go to, a St. Thomas Aquinas or a Columbus. They're not from that area. A lot of them are not from Westchester or from Fort Lauderdale. They're from different parts of South Florida, but they just want to go where they feel like they have the best chance to win, and they're going to get the most notoriety. So there are teams, like you mentioned before, like a Southridge or Killian, that they kind of fall off. Like back in the day, Killian used to, be ripping it up. I mean, Lamar Miller is one of those players who came out of Killian, but now, Killian's trying to come back up to this year. We'll see what they do, but for the past few years, it's been other schools. It's been the Columbuses, of the world. It's been the Palmettos of the world when you talk about South Dade. So I would definitely put a lot of money into the facilities, one, and what you guys talked about before is that the youth football is big down here too. Youth football is probably some of the best, in the country. HBO, I believe, did a documentary on the youth football. Was that HBO? I'm not sure, but one of the major networks did a documentary on the youth football down here in South Florida. So obviously, the talent is bred down here. So I would put more money into that as well. More money into the youth football leagues, and just make it more prominent. That way they're ready once they get into middle school, and once they get into high school, they're better prepared to not only take on high level talent, but just to take on life as a college student. Once you prepare a guy from that young, they're going to be more prepared to go into college and succeed on the next level.
Exactly.
All right. But we have to leave it there. Marcus, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I want to have you back because I do want to talk about some of the players that you've been talking about and more things that you're doing in your community, and also some of your journalistic techniques. If I'm just being honest,
Yeah.
went off on a tangent with
Good,
you.
man. Pretty good.
You know what I mean? But
Good.
definitely, I want to focus our next interview on you. Because you're championing those communities and you're championing those players. And so I definitely don't want to miss out on that opportunity as well to make sure that you get your roses here while you're alive, as opposed to laying them down when you're not. So definitely look forward to have you back on the show, and I definitely appreciate you coming on the Real Talk.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really, really appreciate this.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure to have you on here, man. It's fun.
We'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Take care. Hey, George, man. Good show, man.
Good show. It just breaks my heart, really, when you think about it, because it's just like to have that much talent. Some people wish they could even just fathom that kind of talent.
Exactly.
Not to have the infrastructure in place to support that effort. And it's like you're always clawing to get to the top. Our communities are always just barely enough. Okay, there's enough for everybody else, but it's barely enough for us.
Barely get through. Barely get past.
Yes, we can't do this because of that. And why aren't if it takes sports athletes, why aren't the sports athletes coming in and saying, hey, this is what we need in these particular communities to make sure that we get to this next level and compete. We're not asking for handouts. We're asking to be able to compete like everybody else competes.
Exactly.
You see what I mean?
You got to be welcome to come back. On South Florida, some athletes not welcome to come back, and they distribute like other Texas and them, where they welcome open arms to come back. It's not like that in Miami-Dade County and certain part of Florida. Like you make it, you pray you made it, and then you come back. They don't want you back. So some people want you to come back because they want to say, "Oh, you came here, can't here." But if you start wanting to help the community, you got to go, boy. You can't be doing. You make it a little bad now. They do that more like you making me look bad or saying, "Oh, he actually helping us."
Yeah, but I don't care about making people look bad. I came out of this community, okay? Exactly. And if you want me to keep my mouth shut so you can profit from the community being kept down, then I just can't do that. But that's a topic for another show.
Yeah, that's so good.
We want to thank Marcus Benjamin for coming on. We definitely will have him again. This is George.
This is Frazier.
And this is Real Talk. We'll speak to you guys. We have a special show tomorrow at 7:30.
7:30 Friday, baby.
All right.
Friday Madness.
Real Talk.
Real Talk. George and Frazier.
All right. We're out.